Welcome to Family History Mysteries, a podcast that tells the stories uncovered through family history research, the unexpected stories of everyday people. I am an avid family historian who has been compiling my family tree for over 15 years, with nearly 20,000 people recorded in my trees. And please put a review on my podcast. That will certainly help in getting the word out there and creating more listenership. Episode 262. Amy Stone. Amy Stone was born Amanda Porter in March 1840 in Massachusetts, USA, to John Porter, a blacksmith, and Eunice Dockham. She was the sixth child of 7. She married Henry F. Stone, known as Harry, on the 16th of September 1857 in Boston, Massachusetts, when she was 17 and Harry 25. Amanda used the stage name of Miss Amy Stone, and Harry became her personal manager. She was first featured on the 6th of July 1866 at Vermont, and the article reads, Amy Stone's troupe, which is played at Academy Hall for 2 or 3 evenings past, gives very good satisfaction. This troupe is to remain with us a few evenings longer, and we doubt not that they will be liberally patronised by our citizens. And it says Amy Stone in 6 great characters. In the Melbourne Australiasian on the 20th of February 1869, Theatrical Intelligence from Shanghai. It will be in recollection of many of our Melbourne theatrical folk that some 5 or 6 years since we were visited by a very clever troupe of juveniles called the Marsh Troupe, and that the manager, Mr. R.G. Marsh, together with the bulk of the company, suddenly disappeared from Melbourne, the manager never even mentioning his intended departure to his most intimate friends. His loss was mourned by many. About 18 months ago, after playing a very successful engagement, they left Vancouver Island in a similar manner to seek fresh fields and pastures new. The following letter from Shanghai, dated early in November, gave a short resume of their career. The Marsh Troupe had arrived from Vancouver's Island and contained a goodly array of talent. They cannot now be called the juvenile troupe, as but few are under age. The company consists of Miss Amy Stone, H.F. Stone, and then it lists another 7 people. They gave as their initial performance the play of Fan Chon, in which Miss Stone and Miss Arnott alternated the principal character. They've since performed The Pearl of Savoy, The Cricket on the Hearth, Sketches in India, Pocahontas, and The Rough Diamond, all of which drew good houses. The Marsh Troupe proposed to remain here for the winter. Mr. H.F. Stone, husband of Miss Amy Stone, adds in a letter sent by him to California, "We shall make considerable money here. Prices are big, and it takes but few people to make a paying house. Expenses are no higher than in California, and living is considerably cheaper. My wife and I will leave this place for Hong Kong shortly, and then for California in the spring." On the 10th of May 1869, they were in San Francisco at the Alhambra Theatre. It says Miss Amy Stone in The French Spy and Cigar Girl of Cuba. On the 19th of March 1869, she was in Stockton, California. This evening will be presented Charles Dickens's great work, dramatised by Dion Buchholz, entitled Dot, or The Cricket on the Hearth, in which Miss Amy Stone, Harry Jackson, H.F. Stone, Miss Rose Rand, and Miss Minnie Lister and the entire company will appear. This is the last night but one of the engagement of Miss Amy Stone. At 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, a grand matinee for the accommodation of ladies and families will be given, when the beautiful drama of The Pearl of Savoy will be performed. In 1870, they were living in New York. She listed her occupation as a theatre actress and was living with her husband and her parents. In Reading, Pennsylvania, on the 6th of January 1871. 3 nights only, 5th annual tour of the Amy Stone Sensation Troupe. 22 talented artists. After an absence of 4 years, during which time she has visited China, Japan, Australia, Sandwich Islands, California, Mormon Theatre, Utah, and the entire West, the celebrated sensation star Amy Stone will appear in our midst in an entire new role of characters and with a galaxy of talent clustered around her, unequalled by any company now travelling. The most prominent of which are the popular comedians E.W. Marston and H.F. Stone, and the California star Mr. James Harrison. She then featured at Bresner's Hall. It says Bresner's Hall is to be occupied by the Amy Stone Sensation Troupe on Thursday, Friday and Saturday, January 12th, 13th and 14th, 1871.
The Ogdensburg Daily Journal says the Amy Stone Sensation Troupe opened at Eagle Hall last night to an excellent house in the highly entertaining sensational play Fanchon the Cricket, with Amy Stone in the leading character of the cricket, ably supported by the rest of the company. Without question, it's one of the very best theatrical entertainments ever given in this city. Everything the audience had anticipated from the extremely complimentary notices published of this lady's abilities was realised. The Itheka Daily Leader, speaking of Amy Stone, says Amy Stone is a marvel of excellence, a lady of rare accomplishments in her profession, possessing an intellectual culture marked by a superior degree of refinement and purity of purpose, displaying a business capacity very rarely observed amongst her sex, and withal one of the most agreeable and pleasant women in conversation that we have ever met. She has no superior on the American stage. As a lady, true and noble, whether in private or public life, she cannot but command distinguished admiration and respect from all those who may have the pleasure of meeting her. During the year 1871, New Brunswick was favoured by an uncommon number of stock companies, the first of which, the Amy Stone Sensation Troupe, held forth on the 25th, 26th and 27th of January. Amy Stone was an ambitious young actress who at this time was beginning to play leads in lesser theatres of the New York area. The opening play, Fanchon, drew a crowded house which was delighted with the smoothness of performance. The third night offered Cigarette with Amy in the name part, and she was to play for 2 weeks in New York in 1873. Amy Stone was succeeded on the 13th of March by the Higgins Dramatic Troupe. However, in the September it brought the return of Amy Stone as a partner in Marston and Stone's Dramatic Alliance. She opened on the 6th with Fanchon, which inspired the Fredonian to characterise her as an artiste of unusual versatility of talent. She displays power over the stronger emotions which are equalled by few actresses. The next night brought out The Pearl of Savoy, and on the 8th the town was treated to its first glimpse of East Lynne. The standing room only sign at these performances indicated that the young Miss Stone had a following in New Brunswick. Then she was in Bennington, Vermont on the 17th of February 1872. Amy Stone's Dramatic Alliance. This combination, having visited us formerly under the title of Amy Stone Sensation Troupe, will now appear in new colours, still retaining the old favourites, including the bright, particular feature, the ever-popular, always welcome and truly talented artiste, Amy Stone, supported by the comic genius Thomas Bolius and other well-known performers, with an orchestra attached to the travelling entertainment. The company will present for the first time here the highly successful drama from the pen of Dion Boucault, entitled Elfie or The Cherry Tree Inn, in which Amy Stone will appear as the heroine. From what we have gleaned through the columns of our exchange, this piece is proving the most successful ever presented by this troupe. We advise all to avail themselves of the opportunity to witness it. Then on the 17th of August 1872, there in York, Pennsylvania. On Monday evening next, the Amy Stone Dramatic Alliance will appear at Washington Hall, presenting the military drama Cigarette, or The Little Leopard of France, in which Amy Stone appears. Miss Stone is quite a favourite with our playgoers, and we have no doubt on her appearance, with a new piece on the evening named, she'll be greeted with a large and fashionable audience. On the 27th of June 1873, she's in New York at the Olympic Theatre. Every evening at 8, unsurpassed attraction, grand event of the season, another new novelty. Engagement for a limited period of the charming, gifted and accomplished actress, Miss Amy Stone, who'll appear till further notice in her superb romantic military drama entitled Cigarette, The Little Leopard of France. Beautiful scenery, elegant costumes, fresh appointments, new mechanical effects, a complete and supreme cast of characters. The entertainment challenges competition in excellence, completion and novelty. On the 30th of April 1874, they're in Salt Lake City in Utah. Miss Amy Stone as Cigarette and Mr. H.F. Stone as Khalifa, Ilderim and Ibrahim in the grand romantic military drama of Cigarette at the theatre tonight. On the 6th of February 1875 in the Melbourne Leader, we gather the following items of theatrical intelligence from the New Zealand papers. At Auckland, Miss Amy Stone, who's taken Miss Howard's place in leading business at the Prince of Wales, did good business. She opened as Fanchon in the cricket. At the date of my last advices, she was playing Cigarette and executing broadsword combats and cornet and drum solos in a way that moved the Aucklanders in an unusual admiration. And then she's in Australia. On the 8th of March 1875 in the Ballarat Star, it says, Little Miss Towers will shortly seek the suffrages of audiences in country districts, and in her place, Miss Amy Stone will appear at the Royal in a version of Ouida's novel Under Two Flags, in which she will enact the character of Cigarette. So on the 6th of April 1875 in the Melbourne Argus, the Theatre Royal, brilliant reception and genuine success of a popular young Californian artiste, Amy Stone. It is impossible to not be pleased with Miss Stone, for there is a modest gentleness in her manner which could hardly fail to conciliate. Miss Amy Stone's first appearance added another to the many proofs on record of her cordiality with which a Melbourne audience is always ready to receive an illustrious stranger, no matter what part of the world he or she hails from. The tableau at the end of the prologue, showing Cecil's dream and Rake's garret and illustrating the Battle of Zoraya, is about the best stage picture that has been produced at the Theatre Royal. The scenes of Algeria have been beautifully painted and are themselves worth going to see. The play is the most enlivening one, abounding with novel incidents and strikingly sensational situations. Amy Stone features in Cigarette, the vivandier of Algiers, Captain Francois de Popre, a dumb officer, Abdallah, an Arab boy of the desert, Firefly, the friend of the flag, and Fan the little leopard. On the 28th of April 1875 in the Melbourne Age, Bucholt's play of the above name was performed at the Theatre Royal last night for the first time under that name, though the plot was presented to the public at the Opera House a few months ago under the name of La Tentation. The performance was a soulless one on the whole, and is not likely to prove very attractive. And on the 1st of May 1875 in the Melbourne Leader, the performance at the Theatre Royal on Saturday evening last would induce a stranger to form a very poor estimate of the public taste in Melbourne. The character of the piece, no less than the acting, was an insult to the intelligence of an audience and a reflection upon the tact and discrimination of the management. It is to be regretted that we should not possess a minor theatre where stars of inferior magnitude who are in the habit of visiting Melbourne and appearing at the Royal might afford their special patrons a touch of their quality with appropriate surroundings. The Hidden Head, or The Waif of the Waters, performed on the occasion referred to, is a drama that scarcely calls for serious criticism, except as illustrating the melodramatic rubbish that is said to be highly appreciated in the United States. The title is the first thing that puzzles one. There is no explanation why it should be called The Hidden Hand any more than The Hidden Head or any other portion of the human anatomy. Then comes the plot, than which nothing could be more crude, irrational, or stupid. Miss Amy Stone was, of course, the heroine. Miss Amy Stone has a peculiar, harsh, artificial laugh, which grates upon one's ears and produces a most disagreeable sensation. She does not seem to be aware of this fact, or she would hardly have indulged in such repeated outbursts, often where it is totally misplaced. Certainly one of the most fundamental rules of the dramatic art is violated by rendering the heroine of the piece repugnant to one's idea of natural goodness and softness of the sex. Miss Amy Stone is no way improved her position in the eyes of the Melbourne public by the performance. Mr. Stone is not without ability of the mild sort. His comicality has the flavour of vulgarity, and like a damp musket, very often misses fire. As Wool, the fun consisted of Mr. Stone repeated at intervals, "I believe you," a style trick that we thought had long since been abandoned. Miss Amy Stone did not take the leading character, as was expected. Miss Amy Stone appeared to advantage in a somewhat minor part of Mathilde. Mr. H. F. Stone's impersonation of Hector Placides was not felicitous. So not a very glowing review given by the Melbourne Leader. In the Ararat and Mount Pleasant Creek Advertiser and Chronicle for the district of Wimmera on the 14th of May 1875, Miss Amy Stone gave her oleographic entertainment at the Town Hall on Wednesday. There was an excellent audience, most who seemed to enjoy themselves greatly, if the repeated applause given was any criterion. Mr. H. F. Stone, who takes on the comic role, is a capital dancer and makes himself very amusing. Miss Stone has sufficient versatility to keep her audience from tiring. If in the part of the entertainment which she personally presents there is not every perfection of acting or singing, still the lady manages a most pleasing entertainment. There was, however, considerable disappointment evinced that Miss Stone did not treat her audience to a dance as an accomplishment in which this lady greatly excels. And in the Ballarat Star 3 days later, Amy Stone and Mr H.F. Stone, assisted by Mrs Emily Barrington, will appear next Saturday at the Theatre Royal in a series of characterisations. This entertainment has been spoken very highly of. We note that Amy Stone performs also on the cornet and is declared to be the only female in the world who performs on that instrument. And the review of their performance in Ballarat featured in the Ballarat Star on the 24th of May, 1875. On Saturday evening at the Theatre Royal, Amy Stone, assisted by Mr F.H. Stone and Mrs Emily Barrington, gave an oleographic entertainment entitled Our Country Cousins. There was a fair attendance, and the principal part of the characterisation was borne by Amy Stone herself, who has the advantage of possessing a pleasing presence in a very genial manner. She acquitted herself admirably, showing a great deal of versatile dramatic power in her various representations, including her portrayal of the cobbler's wife and also of the American, French and German female servant in search of a situation. Some of her songs were effectively rendered, and her cornet solo from the opera Maritana was loudly encored. Mr H.F. Stone shows a good deal of humour in some of his impersonations. His step dancing was splendid, eliciting quite a storm of applause and repeated encores. Before the close of the entertainment, Mr Stone cordially thanked the audience for the patronage bestowed and intimated that the entertainment would only be continued on Monday evening. And in the Mount Alexander Mail on the 26th of May, 1875. On Friday evening, Miss Amy Stone, an American comedian, vocalist and danseuse. Various notices of the party have been given by the country press, some of them flattering, others negative, but the Ballarat Star, a good authority on such matters, writes of them in terms of commendation, but theatregoers who feel at all curious about our visitors will soon have an opportunity of forming their own judgment on them. On the 2nd of June, 1875, in the Echuca Riverine Herald. Entertainment at the Shire Hall. The entertainment given by Miss Amy Stone on Monday and Tuesday nights, in which she was assisted by Mr Stone, was fairly patronised by the public of Echuca on each occasion. In the representation of the various characters, Mrs Stone displayed the most versatile power of an accomplished actress, and amongst her other performances she introduced a cornet solo, with considerable skill and taste, and evoked the approbation of the audience, so that an encore was most enthusiastically demanded. Mr Stone assisted Miss Stone in the little piece, in the character of Claude, and gave evidence of the possession of a large amount of low comedy talent. The musical accompaniment was furnished by Mrs E. Barrington, a pianist of considerable talent. And in the Sydney Evening News on the 26th of July, 1875, a new drama to commence tonight at the Queen's under Mr Lazar's management. Mrs Amy Stone and Mr H.F. Stone, California artistes of considerable repute, open tonight in the popular play Cigarette, the Little Leopard of France. Mr and Mrs Stone will be supported by a strong company. And 5 days later in the Sydney Evening News, a dramatised version of Ouida's popular novel Under Two Flags entitled Cigarette served to introduce the new stars Amy and H.F. Stone in congenial parts. The lady possesses an expressive face, a good figure, and that indomitable energy peculiar to American actresses, and Mr Stone is a very excellent low comedian and dancer. The drama itself is full of very effective scenes and situations, and for the most part closely follows the novel. Amy Stone appears in no less than 5 characters, each one elegantly dressed and well played. A cornet solo in the second act is remarkably well rendered. Mr Stone plays the part of Rakewell and dances an eccentric dance admirably. The drama is well mounted, the dresses all new and appropriate, and the scenery better than anything yet produced at this house. There are no less than 15 new scenes. The music is arranged carefully to suit the piece by Mr B. Levy, the leader of the Queen's Orchestra. And on 31st of July 1875 in the Sydney Mail and New South Wales Advertiser, Miss Amy Stone is a little lady that comes from us from Melbourne and California to play light character impersonations at the Queen's Theatre. She commenced her engagement on Monday evening as Cigarette, the Little Leopard of France, in the military drama of that name. But it must be admitted it's a very perverted edition of the tale. Miss Amy Stone has plenty of capacity, a ready appreciation of the humorous, a bright, intelligent face and a good figure. With these recommendations to success, she has it in her power to achieve much. There can be no doubt will be popular here. Whether, however, her histrionic abilities are such as to entitle her to a prominent place in the ranks of the profession is rather debatable. At any rate, if she desired to impress the public with the capabilities of an actress, she could hardly have chosen a more unfortunate piece in which to make her debut than Cigarette. The plot is not intricate, and the tone, though misunderstood by some people of naturally depraved imagination, is quite unobjectionable. Mr. H.F. Stone's delineation of Hector Placide was a piece of honest homely acting, but he was dressed badly and made the part partake more of the low comedy than the author intends. Miss Stone was natural and evinced much emotion as the foolish wife, but the character, except in parts, is too quiet for a lady who fights broadsword combat so well. On the whole, Led Astray, though a heavy piece, is thoroughly well played and reflects credit on the company and management. The scenery must not be forgotten, for as usual it is exquisite, and the orchestra is worthy of the best colonial theatre. On the 6th of August 1875 in the Sydney Punch. Cigarette at the Queen's Theatre has not been continued during the present week, but it would be unjust not to give one or two particulars. Miss Stone plays a tune on the cornet and rattles the tattoo of the drum, fights a fearfully long broadsword combat, enough to tire any man, much more a young lady, and appears alternately as a vivandière, rather of the female larrikin order, a splendidly dressed, very ladylike, dumb captain of chasseurs, and a remarkably looking Arab boy, and does deeds of derring-do that would outdo any knight-errant of the past, including a death scene of 15 minutes in duration. I am reluctant to censure harshly Miss Amy Stone's playing. She is pretty, graceful and painstaking, and her impersonation is not void of merit. Yet she spoils all that by what seems to be an effort in her delivery. She would be better if she would not try so hard, and she should pay every attention to conquering a peculiarity of pronunciation and a mannerism which she has acquired in the United States, but which are not pleasing to us Britishers. Mr. H.F. Stone has the best male part in the piece, a roving eccentric cousin of the family, Hector Placide. Mr. H.F. Stone has not the slightest idea of the part and simply buffoons it. And another review in Sydney on the 14th of August 1875. Miss Amy Stone dresses nicely, plays her best and looks pretty, but after considering her acting in every way, I cannot form the opinion that she'll attain a very high position in her profession. She expresses far too little real feeling in her acting. Mr. H.F. Stone's conception of a detective officer is simply a mistake. Mr. Stone is boisterous, talkative and so clumsy in his movements. Then on the 17th of August 1875, they're still at the Queen's Theatre in Sydney, but in a different play. The Sea of Lee, or The Wildflower of Mexico, is a good old Adelphi drama that's been played in the colonies with more or less success for many years. It was produced yesterday evening at the Queen's with Miss Amy Stone and Mr. H.F. Stone in leading characters. It's a well-constructed piece, having many recommendations to favour as a play of this class. It has a diversity of parts, sensational effects, pretty scenery and costumes, and the situations are not too overstrained. Amy Stone gave an adequate realisation of the part. She has an accent and a mannerism that will always militate against success. She strives for too much after effect, and she appears never to have acquired the art of conveying real feeling and appreciation of the sentiments that's called upon to enunciate. As an intelligent member of a good stock company, the lady will doubtless acquit herself with credit. Miss Stone is deficient in natural acting. Her tendency to exaggerate nature, and consequently her voice appeared constrained and unnatural. However, she was well received by the audience and encored once or twice. Mr. H.F. Stone's vocation is low comedy, and in that line of business he would achieve a marked success, but in attempting character parts he simply makes a mistake. The sensational character of the play is almost extreme, and we should imagine more adapted to a French audience than an English one. In spite of this, the interest in the plot is well sustained to the last. The company supported Miss Stone exceedingly well, and the management deserve great credit for the really splendid manner in which the piece was mounted. It seems that play doesn't last long, as on the 26th of August 1875 in Sydney, it says the Queen's Theatre on Monday next will play Madame Janusjek, the great German tragedian, and it will make Amy Stone and Mr. H.F. Stone's first appearance in the play, and they've been especially engaged by the Queen's management to support her. So 5 days later, there's a review in the Sydney Morning Herald, and it says that Miss Amy Stone sustained the character of Hannah in Madame Januscek, but was by no means adequate to it. Mr. H.F. Stone as Jacob was simply idiotic. A month later, Harry Stone writes an article in Melbourne about interesting particulars of theatrical matters in Sydney. It says Mr. Stone is at present at the Victoria Theatre acting in The Two Orphans with the Lingards, and the Sydney papers mention his impersonation of a comic character with some commendation. He leaves for New York in April, which he intends to organise a new company for a tour around the United States. And by September of the next year, the Hobart Mercury mentions that Miss Amy Stone, the actress, is lecturing in San Francisco on her travels to Australia, 2 small houses. And once back in America, her plays and all the entertainment were included in a great hall on the top floor of the City Hall at Fitchburg, Massachusetts. In the Fitchburg Sentinel, on the 29th of November 1876, City Hall, one night only, Thursday, November 30th. Amy Stone will appear at Fitchburg for the last time, supported by F.A. Townhill and H.F. Stone, with her Australian company and Russell Excelsior Orchestra in the great emotional play of How She Loves Him. And on December the 1st, 1876, in the Fitchburg Sentinel, the dramatic entertainment given by the Amy Stone Company last evening was fairly patronised, and the interest in the play well sustained. The sensational play How She Loves Him was presented, and the leading part sustained by Amy Stone, who added to her previous high reputation as an actress. The drowning scene at the end of the first act was well represented and elicited considerable applause. On February the 25th, 1878, in the Fitchburg Sentinel, Amy Stone, Dramatic Alliance, with H.F. Stone as her manager, one night only, the people's favourite artiste, Amy Stone, supported by the popular comedian H.F. Stone, and a complete first-class dramatic company and orchestra in the beautiful 5-act emotional and musical play Pearl of Savoy, with the Pearl, Marie, played by Amy Stone. And the review of that play says Amy Stone's dramatic company had a good audience in City Hall last evening, and the company gave a very pleasing entertainment. Amy Stone in the Pearl of Savoy was finally supported by H.F. Stone and other good actors and actresses, and the orchestra added much to the evening's pleasure. This company always gives their patrons more than their money's worth, and the public is beginning to appreciate that fact. On the 22nd of March 1878, they're at Pulteney in Vermont. Amy Stone, Dramatic Alliance. The deservedly popular artiste Amy Stone, supported by an excellent dramatic company, visits this place for the first time on Friday. The play presented is a beautiful music drama entitled The Pearl of Savoy, which, with many phases of character displayed by the heroine, is well adapted to the artistic talent of the Pearl, which shines forth in their greatest lustre when personated by Amy Stone, who's played this character before appreciating audiences a large number of times. Those who have seen Amy Stone once are always ready to do so again whenever the opportunity offers, and her return visit is welcome news to the lovers of drama, especially when presented by such talent, so composes the Amy Stone Dramatic Alliance. The orchestra accompanying this company is one of the finest we've ever heard, with any travelling company that has visited this section, the music rendered being of a high order. The play selected for Wednesday evening is Fanchon, the Cricket, Fanchon being one of Amy Stone's greatest characters. All who wish to enjoy a fine evening's entertainment will not fail to attend this last appearance of this gifted actress. And in the Melbourne Lorgnette on the 18th of December 1878, it tells Melbourne readers that Amy Stone and her husband H.B. Stone have formed a troupe called the Amy Stone Dramatic and Music Alliance, and at the latest news was they were touring the towns of New York State. On the 6th of March 1879, they're in Burlington, Vermont. Amy Stone's dramatic company's entertainment at the Howard Opera House. Amy Stone is too well known in this city to require any introduction from us, and Harry Stone and the other members of the company hold high rank in their profession. The Bridgeport Standard says of the troupe, a fine audience greeted the appearance of this company at the Opera House last evening, and all must have been highly delighted with the display, as we've never saw it better presented. The character of Marie in The Pearl of Savoy is one of Amy Stone's best, and affords her fine performances for the play of her abilities in her chosen line of acting. The support rendered by the various members of the company was excellent. A month later, on the 2nd of April 1879, at Montpelier in Vermont. The following from the last North Star is sort of puffs the Amy Stone Company is getting these days. The Amy Stone Dramatic Troupe gave an entertainment in this village last Saturday evening, at which time they played The Two Orphans. Some of the characters were well sustained, but the wonderful Excelsior Orchestra, which was advertised to furnish music for the occasion, consisted of one lonely violin, rather poorly scraped by a forlorn-looking young man. If Amy Stone again visits this section, we would advise her to either leave the solitary fiddle at home or trot out the balance of that orchestra. And the Linden Union, speaking of this company playing at St Johnsbury and Leedenville, said, Amy Stone's troupe showing at the Town Hall Tuesday evening to a fair audience. The establishment is beginning to run emptyings. The Amy Stone troupe played The Two Orphans at Nichols Hall last Monday evening with a small company and one fiddler. It was a fair show, but there was not enough to produce orchestra music. In 1900, they were living in Essex, New Jersey. Later, Mrs. Stone supported prominent Shakespearean stars, Booth McCulloch and many others, and taught acting for a while in Newark, New Jersey. She then received a call from David Belasco to appear in The Grand Army Man. She travelled extensively and first met Mr. Belasco when he was a young man in Victoria, Canada. Harry died on the 18th of April 1919 in New York City, and his death was announced in the paper. Broadway hears that Henry F. Stone, aged 89 years, said to have been America's oldest actor, died recently at his home in Brooklyn. For years he toured the country with his wife Amy Stone under the management of Harry Minor. He's survived by Mrs. Stone and his sister, Mrs. J. Gray, formerly well known as a dramatic actress. And Amy died at the age of 86 on the 24th of December 1922 at her home in Brooklyn, New York. So it seems that Amy Stone was one of those actresses that was lauded in her home country, but when she's tried to translate her plays over to the colonies, it hasn't quite been as well received.
If you are interested in sharing your story on my podcast, Family History Mysteries, please go to my Facebook page and send me a message. If you would like some assistance in filling in the gaps in your family tree to see what mysteries you solve, please get in touch. And don't forget, you can have early access to episodes by subscribing, and you'll also gain access to bonus episodes.